So anything to discuss? Oh yeah.
So what is the case for 9 days or?
Okay. This intermediate body is not for all rebirths. This intermediate body is only for the case of a being that is going to take rebirth in a womb. That means a being that is going to be reborn as a human being or as an animal. Has to go into the womb. So for it to go into the womb, the egg must be fertilized. The egg must be fertilized, then only the consciousness can descend into that fertilized egg. So for that egg to fertilize, there are 3 conditions. For that birth to take place, there are 3 conditions. First, the mother and father must come together, and then the mother must be in the right season. That means the egg must be there, and then this being is waiting to enter the womb is there. So these 3 conditions. Now, how long it takes for him to wait to enter that womb is not mentioned in our Theravada original suttas. The Buddha only said that has to wait for the mother and father to come together. Then only when the egg is fertilized, then it can enter. So only for these 2. And we know in our early suttas there are 5 destinations of rebirth. Heavenly beings, human beings, ghosts, animal and hell beings. Out of these 5, only this human and animal rebirth, that being has to wait. For the other 3 is immediate rebirth. In heaven as a ghost and in hell. In fact, hell is stated very clearly that when a being dies and his karma is going to bring him to hell, the hell beings will come up and drag him down to hell. What we say, ngao thao ma min, gu thao be bin, does exist, hell beings.
Okay, there's another question. That for example, somebody is very big that maybe for many days or what, then if somebody is going to push the body, will be outside or when the body is back, will it outside or will it still in the state, even when somebody pushing or?
It depends on his samadhi, how deep is his samadhi. In the suttas, it is mentioned that one day a layman was praising an external ascetic. I am not sure which one. He said this external ascetic, he was in deep samadhi. And then the king brought 500 soldiers passed by the road, making a lot of noise, these horses going, the horse carriage and everything. And this ascetic was sitting under the tree, and the king and 500 soldiers passed by. He didn't even know. He was in samadhi, he didn't even know. So he praised this ascetic to the Buddha. And the Buddha asked him, is this better? Or the Buddha said, at one time the Buddha was meditating in a hut in the forest. And then a storm arose, a big storm arose. And a lot of trees fell down. And lightning struck and all these things, strong winds. And so many trees fell down that a number of cows were killed, cows and buffaloes were killed. And then after the big storm, a lot of villagers came out and tried to clear the road and clear the damage done and all that. So the Buddha happened to come out of the hut and asked them, what happened? Why so many people around here? And they said there was a big storm. Where were you? They asked the Buddha. The Buddha said, I was in the hut. And they said, how come you were in the hut? You didn't know there was a big storm? The Buddha said, I was meditating. So the Buddha asked the man, which is better, not to hear the big storm or not to hear the 500 soldiers go by. So your samadhi, depending on how deep it is, that is different. So probably if you are in the first jhana, somebody comes and gives you a slap, maybe you may get out of your first jhana. But if you are in the fourth jhana, probably give you a slap, you may not come out of the fourth jhana. But in the higher state, the cessation of perception and feeling, if you enter that state and they come and see you, you see your breath has stopped, your heartbeat has stopped, and they think you are dead. There's a case in the suttas about the previous Buddha, one of the previous Buddha, the disciple, I think his name was Sanjiva, I think meaning come back to life. He was meditating in the deep forest alone, and he had entered this cessation of perception and feeling, where all his consciousness stopped. And then these villagers, they went to the forest to look for wood and look for this and look for that, and they saw him. And then when they found that his breath had stopped, his heart had stopped, they assumed that he was dead. So they thought, we could give him a proper send-off. So they found a lot of dry wood, pile all the wood on top of him and burn the thing. And they thought, give him a proper cremation. The next morning, he went on alms round in the village. They got a shock. They thought his ghost came. Then they found that he survived the big flame. So you see, when he enters the cessation of perception and feeling, even the big fire also cannot harm him. So probably he didn't even harm his robes also, because otherwise he would have gone naked into the town.
So, but there is the possibility that, like for example, a lay person, they meditate at home, then for very long hours, and suddenly open the door and feel that they have been meditating for so long, and when you feel the breath and go back, so they call an ambulance. So when the ambulance came, they check and they thought that they paid. So they will bring them back to the hospital, right? So by then they were actually, when it was Samadhi was sitting, so they will make the leg to straighten it so that they can bring it to hospital, meet at that stage, there won't be any lifting up or
that depends on his his samadhi, and also, before I came to Buddhism, I was practicing Hinduism for about 4 years. So I read about one of the Indian saints. When he was young, maybe because of his previous life, being able to enter samadhi, sometimes when he sleeps, he goes into a very deep sleep. So his friends come and disturb him, he's not aware, They tease him and slap him and all that, so he's not aware. So that has to do with the previous life.
Okay, if for example, you use a needle and put in because normally the ambulance will use the needle to catch. The first time there isn't any you will catch like an time now. So normally when doing this, does it affect the samadhi? That means you use the needle to form.
If he's in a deep samadhi, it will not affect him. He's not aware of his body. I would think so. But generally, it's hard to find lay person who can attain that type of samadhi. Very rare. If he can attain that type of samadhi, he won't stay as a lay person. According to the Buddha's words, definitely he won't stay as a lay person. We don't talk about specific cases. I don't know.
I want to ask about revulsion. In the suttas, that is like a thing when we contemplate to establish to get revulsion and passion. So you get that three stage in terms of the design. Is it a stage whereby the person will opportunity to renounce the things, renounce the world and perhaps live a spiritual life. For example, and just something like Sita, I assume that it would have attained a certain level of revulsion and distraction towards the world, because we usually see as a renounce, even with this person. So I just wonder what made me not renounce the world and already expectation.
You see, somebody like Chitta, even though he's not considered a renunciant, but I believe that the life he leads is very similar to a renunciant. So, because he has already seen the Dhamma and being an anagamin, he's not interested in worldly affairs, probably his business and all that. He leaves to the wife to run the home and all that. And then he just considers his room to be like a cave. And he hide himself in the room the whole day or most of the time. Except maybe when it's time to do dana to the monks, he'll come out and do dana. So a person who can attain even the first sotapanna, he would already have some revulsion. This word revulsion, you can say disenchantment, you can say wearied of the world. Sian liao, ya liao, im jo. No more chasing after anything interesting in the world. No more interested to go and see Gua Tumpurong.
That is a visual human form to look at this. To me, who goes to the for a father and mother to come together, the mother and the wife. So for somebody to pick a visual human form, it means that who the parents will be is estimated.
This one I can't tell you. I can't tell you. You see, you can think of various possibilities. Say, suppose you take a plane, you go overseas on a holiday or something, and then your plane crashes, and then you die there. But say you die in America, but the people you have affinity with is in Malaysia. Whether your what you call soul or whatever there can come back to Malaysia. Interesting, huh? But this, there are some people, like this Professor Ian Stevenson, has written a book, done a lot of research about reincarnation. Has written a small booklet, and the other person, I think it's Francis Story or something like that. Francis Story or Agaton Baptist, written about rebirth. And when they hear that a person remembers their past life, they go and question him. So it seems there was one case of a person, he remembered that when he died, he took form of a small being, a few inches only. And he didn't know where to go. And then he saw his funeral, everything. After that, he was wandering around, he didn't know where to go for a few days. Then one day he saw somebody whom he recognized to come from the sister's house. That person maybe went to market or something and is going home with the basket. And then this being, he jumped into that basket and it seems he was reborn as the sister's son. So, that's what he remembers. So, it's interesting.
Okay. You mentioned about the Kanada. So for conceptions to take place, the consciousness must be very. So how do you differentiate the Gandhava and the consciousness?
The Gandhava, can consider it to be a kind of being, because the Buddha says that when you have a being with consciousness, it must come together with the 5 aggregates. You cannot have consciousness without the 5 aggregates. So it's actually a being. But because it's a temporary being, the Buddha does not classify it as one of the 5 destinations of rebirth, because it's only temporary, maybe only for a few days or for a few weeks, and then it will enter the womb. So it has consciousness. So when it enters the fertilized egg, in the sutta they call it the descent of consciousness. Descent of consciousness into that egg. So once it descends into that egg, then you have the 6 senses. Then it's aware. It's an egg in the womb. It's aware of the surroundings. So when that egg, that fertilized egg, when the consciousness enters, that is become a being already. So if you, after that, if you perform an abortion, that's a killing of a human being.
They observe not eating after midday, and they also practice not using meat. But whereas some they suppose they take meat any kind of the day, especially one monks.
Are you talking about monks? Monks and nuns.
Some they don't practice they say afternoon is busy, so they go about having supper and whatnot, and then enjoy those activity and all those things. So I was wondering how the separation between tradition.
I think that rotten monks and nuns, they are present in all traditions and in all religions. So that cannot be helped, the rotten eggs. But the motive of a person wearing the robe is very important. There are some people, they wear the robe as a means of livelihood, so that they have an easy life, they don't have to work. People just bring food to them, they don't have to slog so hard, and sometimes they get very good offerings. So although like in the different sects of Buddhism, this is found, but there are certain sects where it's more pronounced. For example, like in Chinese Buddhism. In Chinese Buddhism, because the peculiarity about Chinese Buddhism is that the monks and the nuns have been forced by the Emperor of China in the year 511 to become vegetarians. So after they became vegetarians, they found that they have to cook themselves, they have to look for money to buy food, because they are not able to go on alms round. Once they become vegetarians, it's not practical to go on alms round. Nobody's going to provide you with vegetarian food. So then as a result of taking vegetarian food, they found that at night they get hungry because vegetarian food digests very easily, and even you take breakfast and lunch, by night you get hungry already, unlike taking of meat. So it is generally true that most Mahayana monks and nuns, probably 90% of them or more, they eat at night. And sometimes they eat openly also. They even go for dinner with lay people and eat from the same dishes and all that, which is not allowed by the Vinaya. So because of relaxing the rules, they find that that's the danger with relaxing the rules. Once you start relaxing one rule, then you relax another, and very soon you are not able to keep any rule because people take for granted that these are not important. So that's why they start talking about 方便法门, expedient means, provisional means. The problem is 方便法门 becomes 随便法门. Anything boleh, anything can do. So That's the problem. And this vegetarian practice is not a Mahayana practice. It is a Han Chuan Fo Jiao. It's peculiar only to Chinese Buddhism, because you have other branches of Mahayana Buddhism, like Tibetan Buddhism. They don't practice vegetarianism. So it's only peculiar to China and those places like Vietnam, because they are influenced by China. Then also, or South Korea. So that's the thing.
During the regular fasting channel, when we don't say the Mahayana and the Theravada, they eat together in the same monastery, they eat together, they learn from each other together. At that time, they learn a lot of learning. And according to the Theravada Vinaya is that they don't practice the same Vinaya, we don't eat together or eat together in the same area. I presume that they don't say they do practice the same standard.
But hard to say because that was long after the Buddha passed away, whether they actually kept the Vinaya or not, we don't know. But like in Tibetan Buddhism, a lot of external sect practices have crept into Tibetan Buddhism, because Tibetan Buddhism started only 1,200 years after the Buddha passed away. So things like Tantric Buddhism, which comes from Tantra Yoga, where the master and the disciple can make love and all these things, it's taught in their teachings, but it's totally against the Buddha's Vinaya. So this is one of the things that caused the downfall of Buddhism in India. So the Buddha always stressed that we have to uphold the Vinaya and practice the Dhamma. That's why the Dhamma Vinaya is our teacher. So you cannot say you want to practice part of the Buddha's teachings, you don't want to practice another part. So that will cause a disappearance of the true Dhamma. Unfortunately, all these wrong practices and wrong teachings are not peculiar to one sect. They are found in all forms of Buddhism, even Theravada Buddhism. Theravada Buddhism now is also very much corrupted by later books like the commentaries and Abhidharma and all that. So that nowadays people don't talk about attaining the jhanas. But in the Buddha's time, the jhanas are extremely important. Yeah.
Doesn't accept Dharma offering. She works to earn the degree. So in one of the biographies she wrote about when she was just become an undergrad, because there's no need she will cultivate her own food. So what she do is she will go to the field and pick up things that's left over, like sweet potato and all this kind of food for the meal. They said picking up from somebody's farm.
It can amount to stealing if they did not give her permission and they are not happy that she took those things. But you see, that's the danger of some people. Instead of following the Buddha's instructions and depending on the Buddha's wisdom to guide us, some people they want to use their own wisdom. They think they are very smart. But they are not smart. The Buddha wanted monks and nuns to rely on lay people for their food so that the lay people would have a means of getting blessings, merit. That's why in the monk's Vinaya, it's not allowed for a monk to go deep into the forest and live like, for example, a Hindu ascetic and live off the roots of the trees or live off the fruits and all that and survive in the deep jungle. The Buddha did not allow that. The Buddha said a monk must come out and beg for his food. After getting your food, if you want, you can go into the deep forest to meditate. But every day you have to come out and beg for your food. That's because the Buddha wants the lay people and the monks and nuns to interact so that they benefit each other.
I think in this case, because he is the Mahayana nun doesn't go for Amsram, and she doesn't accept Dana. So I think it's caught in the
if she has studied the Buddha's words in the earliest Nikayas and in the Vinaya, she would not come to that conclusion, because she didn't study, so probably she thought she was doing the right thing. In fact, we find in the suttas, sometimes external ascetics, they are very proud of their teaching, they are very proud of their sect, of their religion and all that. They come and argue with the Buddha. And then they argue with the Buddha, and finally the Buddha defeat them and convince them of the Buddha's teachings. Then they realize, what they realize? They realize, they thought that they were monks before. They said now they realize they were not monks before. They thought they were practicing the holy life, but now they realize they were not practicing the holy life. So you see, sometimes you use your own wisdom. You think you are doing the right thing, you are doing the wrong thing. That's why it's very important to rely on the wisdom of a Sammasambuddha. That's why sometimes people come and learn from a teacher. They are not willing to give up their own preconceived ideas. They think they are smarter than the teacher. That's the problem. When you learn from a teacher, you have to give up some of your views. Like the Buddha says in the sutta, the Buddha told one of his disciples, when you come to learn, you must always have the view that the teacher knows more than me. Otherwise, no point to follow your teacher. You go on your own. If you think a person is smart enough, no need to follow a teacher. You go on your own. So in the same way, when we are disciples of the Buddha, when the person renounces, he's called the son of the Sakyan, Sakyaputta. So we must always follow the Buddha's instructions. Not like this nun. In fact, in the later, several hundred years after the Buddha passed away, people who use their own thinking, they start creating new teachings, and they call it expedient teachings, Fang Pian Famen and all that, which is basically what Mahayana Sutras are about. They create things like Kuan Yin Pusa. And why do they create things like Kuan Yin Pusa and Amitofo? Because they think it's difficult for ordinary people to practice a spiritual path, very difficult to meditate, difficult to keep the precepts and all these things. So you have this Fang Pian Famen where you can pray to Kuan Yin for help. And they think that is bringing people into Buddhism so that slowly they can follow the Buddha. But that's a silly way of thinking, because once they come into Buddhism with this Kuan Yin and Amitabha Buddha in their mind, they will cling to it, they will never give up. They are not going to change from Kuan Yin to become a great meditator. No, they will cling on to Kuan Yin. So the Buddha, from the very beginning, the Buddha never compromised on such things. The Buddha always taught the essence of the holy life. Even it's difficult to do also, the Buddha said we should follow because that is necessary. You see? So if we want an easy way, I always say, cheap things are not good, good things are not cheap. Okay. Yeah. He is going back tomorrow, must ask this question.
I think it was also you refer to the mark of Sutuka.
Okay, yeah.
So, if the word Sutuka refer to our ladies or after they refer to the mark of Sutuka?
Can. Because in the suttas, the Buddha says there are 9 types of beings in the world, only 9 types of beings. The first one is the Putujana. Putujana means an ordinary worldling. And then after that are 8 Aryans. The 8 Aryans are the first path, first fruit, second path, second fruit, third path, third fruit, fourth path, fourth fruit. So if you have not attained any Aryan stage, that person will be a Putujana. Doesn't matter whether he's a monk or a nun or a lay person. If he has not become an Arya, he is a Putujana. So that will include all the beings in hell, all the beings in the ghost realm, all the beings in the animal realm, and most of the human beings, and most of the devas and devis. Oh yeah. Most of them are Putujana. That's why when they come across an Arya or Arahant, they have great respect. Okay, stop here for tonight.